All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session on building sustainable health and well-being practices. What's next for workforce health? So, this is a session brought to you in partnership with MediBuddy. I am Jerry, and I'm part of the content team here at People Matters. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome you all to this discussion. So, this exclusive discussion is brought to you as a part of a series called Wellness First with MediBuddy, where we're trying to curate some of the best resources on holistic healthcare and wellness with leading experts from the industry and the medical community. We are bringing together some conversations like this, virtual roundtables, expert panels, health tips, articles, and blogs. And we're also engaging in a research. All of this is aimed at simplifying your wellness journey to help you drive impact and care for your employees. So, a little bit about our discussion today. The pandemic has spurred spending on wellness offerings. We've seen the expansion of the wellness agenda, right from physical health to mental health, financial health. But there are a lot of concerns as well as we step into this new era of hybrid workplace. There are ineffective approaches. There are issues with trust between individuals, teams, and leadership as they continue to work remotely, partly. And there are also new health challenges that employees are struggling with. So, this discussion will help you with some key priorities and checks and balances that you could think about to build up your wellness practices to become more sustainable in the future. Yeah. So before I invite our panelists, I want to take a moment to thank the MediBuddy team for helping us curate this session and for being on the forefront of putting this agenda together and helping us have these conversations. And I also would like to share with our audience that this hashtag called Wellness First with MediBuddy is what we are following, and we would like for you also to use this tag to discover resources uh, as part of this campaign that will help you in your wellness journey. So we're also engaging in a research called Wellness 360. If you would like to share your inputs for this research, please look for a link on the comments and also probably on this banner. So this is a report that we will come out with in the next month. And you also stand a chance to get this benchmarking report and also win exciting prizes. So look for this link in the comment section. All right, so with that, I'm going to introduce our expert panel. First, we have with us Mayuk Methi, who is the Executive Vice President for HR at Tata Capital. And Mayuk comes with over 29 years of experience of working with the Tata Group, and he is driven by innovation, digital transformation, and strategic thinking with a focus on execution and integrity. Great to have you with us today, Mayuk. Also, we have with us
Thank
Neha.
you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
We also have Neha Sinha, who is the Director of HR at CGI. And Neha comes with over 15 years of experience of working across different HR functions in varied roles. And she is covered right from mergers and acquisitions, competency mapping, employee relations, consulting, and employee engagement initiatives. So great to have you with us here today, Neha.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Good to be here.
We also have with us Manoj Balaji, who is the Senior Vice President and Business Head at MediBuddy. And Manoj was instrumental in kickstarting MediBuddy's outpatient health services business and scaling it up. And he's a senior business leader with over 14 years of experience across healthcare, consumer internet, and IT and ITES, both B2B and B2C. Great to have you with us, Manoj.
Thanks, Jerry. Pleasure to be here.
All right, great. So for our audience who are joining us, thank you for taking time. But I'd also like to share that you could post any questions that you have, any thoughts and comments that you'd like to share at any time during this session when our speakers are sharing their thoughts. And we will take up questions at the end of this discussion. All right. Okay, so with that, our first question is a general question for all of our panelists, and we could take time to speak about this. What, according to you, have been the biggest shift in how companies approach employee wellness based off of the past 2 years? Let's start with Mayuk and then we go to Neha.
Uh, So, to me, in the last 2 years, I think the fundamental shift which has happened in terms of the entire landscape of wellness journey is from first starting with the employee mindset. The employees themselves now want to move to a preventive space rather than a reactive space. So earlier, when I had something, an ailment, I would go to the doctor. Now people are moving more and more towards understanding, uh, uh, let me have a feel of what I can do before I can get that ailment. So that entire space is in a way of transformation, and as you rightly said, that there is a explosion in terms of the health and wellness platforms that has come up. Some of it is opportunistic, some of it is genuine, and so it's imperative for the organizations who are serious about it to help and curate some of these platforms for the employees, because employees often get misguided as to what they need to do, what they do not need to do. So that sort of curation is something which the organizations need to do. The organizations today also are, because we work now. I mean, hybrid working has become a norm of the day, and I think it is going to stay. Even, for example, I come from financial services, where perhaps today 80-85% of the people are back in the offices. Even during the pandemic, our branches were always open. People who were in the field had to meet customers and etc. Uh, but there was a good number of people who were working from home. But today, once it is coming towards normalization, people are coming back to the office. But even so, uh, I think there is a gradual shift in terms of how we look at mental health. I mean, focus on towards mental health. So that is another piece which the organizations are looking at very proactively, because the pandemic has taught that one is, of course, remotely working has a impact on the mental health aspects. Initially, we realized the productivity of our employees were actually high in the initial phase, but it started tapering down. People, in fact, the reason also we have a large number of people back in the offices because employees themselves want to come back to the offices. So that's also another trend. But in which ways, the focus on mental health is perhaps one of the key shifts which the organizations are seeing. Also, it helps the use of technology. Also, the use of technology, for example, in medical cases. For example, we always had a system of annual health checkups, and many organizations do that. But how do we use this data? Are we using analytics to create a trend of predicting that for my organization, for different health, different geographies, this is sort of a prediction that might go happen, that the stress levels are going up and sugar levels are going up. Can we do proactively do some interventions to help bring the state of health of the organization in a better shape? Also, it helps the organization in terms of bringing down the insurance cost to a great extent. So these are some of the shifts that I'm fundamentally seeing in this field.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayuk. I think you summarized all the major shifts, and we're going to have a tough time for Neha and Manoj to follow this up. But thank you for sharing that so comprehensively, right from the mindset change to how employees themselves are taking responsibility, and the biggest shift in mental health and the use of technology to sort of think more proactively about health. I think, thank you so much for that. Neha, over to you now.
Thanks. So as rightly you rightly said, Jerry, Mayuk has kind of summed up everything. I'll probably just add on some of the points that I have, not going back to the points that he said. I think one of the most important change that I have seen is health and wellness is now becoming a part of the employee value proposition for any organization. So when you're it's becoming very important for an organization to really tell employees on how are they invested, how much are they invested in the health and wellness of employees. And that could be their physical wellness, their mental wellness, everything becomes very important. I mean, I would just like to refer to the Stephen Covey's Eighth Habit. If you've read, there's the whole person paradigm that he really talks about. I mean, you cannot treat a person just as a body. There has to be a mind which has an intellectual alignment. Then there's obviously a body with a psychological safety, the physiological safety. Then there's a heart and a spirit. And that is how the organizations today need to look at their employees for. And that has gained a lot more importance in the last 2 years. Like Mayuk spoke about the mental wellness, that has become very important. I mean, while we were dealing with COVID, there was one side of medical help that the employees needed, their medical support. There was also a mental support that they needed because there was so much happening around them. They were stuck up in a house. Almost every employee was dealing with some kind of an illness or someone in the family not being well. And at that time, taking care of the family and his professional duties, it become very important. So mental wellness gained a lot of importance in the last 2 years. And today, if you really look at it, every organization now really has a driven agenda for health and wellness. That's something that I've seen change over the last 2 years. So that's my addition to whatever Mayuk said.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Neha. I think it sort of, again, encapsulates everything that has changed from an employee value proposition perspective and also a personal career perspective, right? You mentioned Stephen R. Covey as well, and how personal work is also sort of getting driven by this new paradigm. Manoj, over to you on this.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think, like you mentioned, Mayuk and Nea's covered fair bit of points around what has changed. But just adding on to some of the pieces, and some of it might be reiterative from my perspective, but wanted to sort of give context to the overall piece. And I want to start off with saying that. I've been in the healthcare industry for about 15 plus years, so I've actually been sort of had the opportunity to go through the transformation which health and wellness has seen over the years from all aspects of it. One, not only just in terms of how corporates look at health and well-being of their employees, but also at the fulfillment level in terms of how the industry has progressed across the various stakeholder system, be it the wellness partners, diagnostic centers, the hospitals, how technology has sort of evolved over a period of time. And one thing which I wanted to say that what last 2 years has done in terms of catapulting adoption of technology, I think it was never seen in the last 15 years. So I think it is pretty much fast tracked all the digital adoption of technology across the board, be it not only from the front end customer side of it in terms of how today, if you actually look at it, one of the key aspects of while employee health and wellness or well-being as a strategy, two important aspects organizations do look at it is saying what are the sort of benefits or services I can provide to employees which are digitally delivered and home delivered. So it has kind of changed the thought process in terms of how employees, organizations are looking for employees to have access to healthcare benefits, because like Mayuk and Neha said, I think everyone has seen what COVID did to sort of bring to the fore the various sort of constraints with respect to how healthcare systems operated. I think from that perspective, it completely has given a paradigm shift in terms of how it needs to be adopted. Secondly, I think while strategy is being thought through for all employees put in perspective, organizations predominantly historically were thinking from employees being present in their respective office locations. What pandemic has sort of done is saying because of the hybrid bond, like Mayuk also mentioned, they have to cater to employees who are living in multiple locations across the country, be it in tier 2 locations or tier 3 locations, because health and wellness benefits if they're offering for employees, that has to be uniform across all employees, and they should be able to access that. So I think for them to put together a strategy and work with their respective partners in terms of how to ensure that the services are available for employees and dependents across the pan-India geography. I think that thought process has multiple nuances, which is enable that one from benefits construct perspective. For example, if there are A, B, or C services, like Mayuk mentioned earlier, saying earlier it was only about annual health check services. Today, people are moving to saying I want to, and to Neha's point of how do we put together a cohort of services, and also allow employees to choose that on a sort of flexible model, because at the end of the day, the objective is for employees to sort of choose what they need, what is the need, or what is their healthcare need per se. How can actually they choose the assortment of healthcare choices which is available at their respective locations, be it virtually or at home. So I think it is sort of change in terms of how the overall benefits mix is being given to the employees, the construct of spend, the construct of digital adoption, and this being overall organization strategy and culture, than this being in a silo historically. So those are my 2 cents. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think that was a great summary, Manoj. I think we kept hearing this thing about digital transformation, right? Like a decade's worth of change got done in a few weeks. And I think we've seen that with holistic healthcare as well, right? And how companies are sort of approaching that. And I think what you said is really encapsulated that shift in terms of benefits, in terms of digital delivery, in terms of the emphasis for home delivery, and also the bucket of benefits that sort of suit everyone. So, thank you for sharing that. So, Mayuk, I'm coming to you with the next question on sustainability. And when you're thinking about this question of sustainability with respect to wellness programs, how are you thinking about this, and how are you approaching the design of some of these programs to look at more forward-looking programs?
See, I mean, in the sense that uh, see, this journey, if I would say, is pretty nascent, because all organizations have been triggered by the events of the last 2 years. So organizations are still building on what they need to do. But what I can at least say that to create a sustainable program, one needs to first of all align with what the employee wants. If you do something which the employee doesn't want, it won't be sustainable, right? So co-creation of programs of and when I talk about this, it is different for different age groups, demographics, and etc. So how do we create a sustainable program which is in a way segmented and customized to the employee groups is a big challenge for the organization. Typically, it is like in HR, typically we run engagement programs. Engagement programs typically used to happen, as a broad brush initiative. Everybody has to participate in something. Now, not everybody gets engaged by everything that an organization does, right? While I can be more enthused by a ticket to a sports match, the other guy might be more enthusiastic towards going for a musical concert, right? Similarly, for health and wellness programs, one is, of course, there is a basic minimum agenda for the organization, which the organization needs to do. But if you want to do anything over and beyond that for longer-term sustainability, you need to cater to the needs of the individuals, at least in large, in groups, at least. So, in a way, we also do a thing called the happiness survey for the organization, which throws some light into what sort of life rules that these guys and the employees need to do, and we sort of try to design programs around it. Another shift is that we also try to include, especially for the health and wellness program, the families as a part of the larger work, because there is a better buy-in in case the families are involved. For example, when you run a yoga class, you would want your family to be along with you, so that there is a better buy-in and everybody in the family sort of does it. It's not only the employee who is doing, and things like that. So it creates a better buy-in. Uh, Third is in terms of, as I said, that some of the initiatives are whether you create clubs, for example, a trekking club or a gymnast. I'll give you a very critical example. For example, and many of this is also driven by the top. Sometimes people also follow what the top does. I would give an example in the Tata Group, for example. Today, running a marathon has become a big sort of initiative. In fact, the Bombay Marathon is called Tata Marathon because Tata sponsored it. Because it started with our chairman being a marathon enthusiast, and that is how now today there are clubs in every organization, and these clubs are not in one location. This if you have locational organization, you'll have clubs in every location which only trains for marathon. So it's like starting a movement. So this is how, basically what we are saying is, one is of course create a theme-based campaign as to if you create a program to create a sustainable practice. Second is and the other piece is the use of technology to basically track the outcomes, review them, and keep on improving them. You might run a program, but then it doesn't have, for example, a few years ago, I recall we had run a stepathon program. If you see it started with a lot of fanfare, but it trickled down the train. So in terms of constantly reviewing it, improving it, and seeing whether it is creating the desired engagement is what is going to create the sustainability for the organization. Often, like businesses, we also need to sort of keep on reviewing these wellness-based results as well.
Excellent, excellent. So I think again we've covered a lot of things there, right from the nature of change to what you're doing at Tata Capital, and I think some of the behaviors and habits that I think HR professionals need to imbibe to make sure that these are sustainable. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mayuk. I had one follow-up question on families that you had mentioned. So you're saying that families also participate in some of the programs, or they also sort of inform some of your practices?
No, they participate in the programs as well.
Okay, so
Especially
that's how
especially in the training campus and etc. They also participate.
all right. So that's a great way to get a buy-in to make sure that everyone is motivated and healthy. So that's great. So Mayuk also spoke about technology, and I think that's our next question on technology. Whether it's how do you also talked about cracking outcomes as being very central to designing sustainable practices. Manoj, how are you thinking about using technology to create sustainable wellness programs, and what are some key considerations that you would like to share with HR leaders today?
No, I think Mayuk, fairly covered from a perspective that how technology is sort of playing a key role in terms of tracking and outcome driven measures. But I'd probably take a step back and sort of want to highlight the fact that at the end of the day, technology predominantly is an enabler, right? At the end of the day, a lot of things gets defined from a perspective is from an organization perspective, and I'm talking in the context of health and wellness benefits. What is the purpose of health and wellness benefits which an organization intend to sort of derive by providing that to the employees, right? Is it it could be multi-pronged. There are organizations, while that shift has been happening, there are organizations who think from a perspective that I want to ensure employees have access to. That could be one only a singular strategy. Some of them do think from that perspective because it's not core to them, and they may not have the time and bandwidth to sort of follow the course. So that could be one. Another approach is where everything is sort of very much embedded in from an overall benefits perspective, saying, we want to sort of create benefit plans from one, access perspective, second, tracking perspective, third, you want to be part of the entire health and well-being journey of an individual from an overall perspective, that anything related to health and well-being with an organization want to provide, you want to sort of be part of their journey and ensure that access and enablement comes as part of the key input which is given to what you intend to build or work with technology partners, right? And third is also about from a perspective which Mayuk touched upon, saying while there are a bunch of benefits which is available, at the end of the day, anything in health and wellness, if it has to, and from a preventive healthcare perspective or a well-being perspective, the results come not from a singular 1 year strategy or 2 year strategy. It is a multi-year strategy. You will see results and outcomes if you're at it on a continuous basis for at least 3 to 5 years, if not more, right? So what I intended to say as a first piece is that it is important to define what an organization's purpose is towards employees' health and well-being, because that sort of defines how you want to sort of enable technology. Then comes, and let's say that purpose is defined, then you actually, if you layer it into 3 or 4 areas, one is saying of various, and Mayuk spoke about people having the need to access gym membership or gyms in their local vicinity or any of the, let's say, healthcare outlets in the vicinity and so on and so forth. Important pieces for each of the health and wellness pieces which you want employees to avail. Can you create that access for the employees on the platform by which they have various services and facilities available in the vicinity or digitally available? So, for example, if you want to talk about COVID sort of sort of gave an impetus to how people started adopting teleconsultations, which predominantly was happening in an offline template. So is that digitally available on your platform? So that sort of, I'm giving one example of an access. So how does the service access available for employees in a seamless manner, right? The second point which comes in saying, while everything is there on the platform, healthcare is still not reached where it is akin to a e-commerce shopping, right? It is very much on a need basis when you use it, which means that you have to make people aware of the fact that there are various healthcare services which is available for you, not only for yourself, but for your dependents as well, which Mayuk touched upon the fact that it is not just for employees, but for their dependents as well, which requires for want to build adoption, which requires that there has to be active engagement on a continuous basis, and there has to be a whole engagement strategy, and it could be led by technology, right? There could be gamification modules which is available on the platform. There could be modules which is available for incentivizing healthy behaviors, because at the end of the day, you're looking for employees, you want to be part of employees healthcare journey, and you want to ensure that you want to sort of give acknowledge healthy behaviors. So that's another piece of it, which is first is access, second is about adoption and engagement, third is about analytics, right? Again, I spoke about the multi-year strategy. Many a times the programs and benefits cannot be thought through from one size fits all, right? And if you really want to put and embed in a sort of health and well-being strategy, you have to be continuously work in terms of how your data cohorts look like. So, for example, if your population, if you have given certain set of services, one, are those the right set of services, which is what you're looking to do it. So one is about the choice of benefits which you want to give to the employees. Secondly, for people who use various services, how do you use their data patterns and analytics to further drill down to build newer set of programs which are value accretive from a long-term perspective? So if someone is sort of in, let's say, they actually take their necessary health and well-being benefits and programs, but figure out that, let's say, someone is in has a chronic condition like diabetes or hypertension. I'm just using some of these examples. Would you want to sort of build programs over a period of time for those cohort of people as well? So it is more about being very inclusive in terms of thinking about benefits, which percolates down to various sets of employees, various cohorts of employees, and sort of keep innovating from a benefit design perspective. And that's where technology can play a very important role in terms of how you look at analytics. So these were the 3 or 4 layers in which one would want to think about from a technology perspective. And last but not the least, while we're talking from an employee centric perspective, it is important for HR leaders also to sort of know about the information or health of the organization, right? One is what is the service level utilization. Second is what does the analytics say from a health index of the organization, and what are the areas they need to focus on, like I mentioned before. So I think the access revolves not just from enabling employees, but also HR leaders and the wellness benefits managers to plan the design benefits design much better.
Absolutely. I think that was a great overview again, Manoj. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I really like the emphasis that you had for the audience to think about this from a multi-year strategy perspective, from a long-term perspective, and get behind the purpose and then enable access, awareness, use data, and make sure that data is not just for the employee, but also for leaders. So um, pretty comprehensive. Thank you for that. I'd also like to ask Neha the same question on how, as a practitioner, you're thinking about technology and how maybe you're also utilizing technology in your own organization.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has been said by Manoj and Mayuk. A lot of points have been covered, and I'll focus mostly on the technology part, on how we can really use the available technology for making these health and wellness programs more sustainable. I think what people are now at this point looking at solutions being available just in time. When the point is they're all. There are triggers that happen, and they want something to be available for them just in time. So that becomes a very important factor when we are really looking at any health and wellness initiative to be implemented. I mean, I'll just give you an example. At CGI, we implemented something called as an inner hour app. I mean, there is a global mental wellness program that runs, and CGI as an organization has quite a lot of focus on health and wellness pre-pandemic as well, and that has increased during the pandemic as well. So we have a global mandate for health and wellness, and as a part of it, within India, within APAC, we launched something called as NRR. And the reason why we adopted to the NRR app was because it was available on the mobile. The UI UX was very easy to use. It could give you solutions right there. There were bite-size programs that were available, where you take a break of 10 minutes. You're feeling stressed, take a break of 10 minutes, do a breathing exercise with the help of that app, and you are at least a little bit more relaxed than what you were. So the UI UX becomes very important. And again, I'm talking mainly from how can we use the technology side. The UI UX becomes important. The availability of the program, how easily is it accessible, becomes very important. I think another thing that we have seen that really works is gamifying the whole health and wellness experience. We've seen of challenges being floated in organizations during this pandemic. We've seen of various apps being utilized for driving this health and wellness initiatives. So gamifying kind of brings a different kind of interest. It also gives a distraction to people while they're working from home. So I think gamifying becomes is again something that can be really used. I mean, to give you an example, we used to have a wellness week every year for CGI. And this last year, when we couldn't do it physically, what we did was we gamified the whole week. So there were games being played, there were competitions being held, there were people coming out and sharing their stories. That really helped something. And then I would like to go back to Mayuk's point on sustainability, where he said that it has to be top down. It is very, very important for us to have leadership sponsorship for it. So leaders, sponsoring your health and wellness program, like you said, when you hear your leaders doing something, you tend to, follow it, take it more seriously, and tend to follow it a little bit, or get at least inspired by it. So we have these, again, 10-minute interviews of leaders that we have at EVP levels, VP levels, who basically share their health and wellness journey. Okay, so that works very well. And also at least the whole health and wellness initiative have a team which is focused on it. I mean, HR drives that as an agenda, as an initiative, but you need to have a dedicated team that's really looking at it, and that team really needs to have a leadership sponsorship. So I guess these are the ways, and with the use of technology, keep communicating, send out newsletters, tell people what's happening, share stories, share competitions. I think that really helps. These are a few things where I really think we can use technology to make these more sustainable.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Neha. I think you touched on the, different elements of that technology piece, right? From UI, UX to gamification to communication, how you're sort of also recording interviews with your leaders to amplify the message. So, thank you for sharing that. And on the question of leadership, in fact, that's our next question. And Mayuk, what are your thoughts on getting senior leaders on board? How important is it, and how do you see it happening successfully? And not just leaders, but also different stakeholders like managers. During this hybrid context with increased remote work, there's only the visibility of the manager sometimes. So then, how do you sort of inspire them also to take a very active role on wellness?
See, one is inspiration, the other is mandate. I mean, both need to work together. I mean, one without the other may not succeed. So I can tell for Tata Capital, for example, we have a very well-defined OHS program, which is Organization Health and Safety Program. And we are a ISO 45001 certified organization. So, as you say earlier, if you look at our earlier, it used to be called only a safety journey. Only post 2018-19, we started including organization health and safety as a part of the nomenclature. And as a part of that, so it's a certification led journey for us. So all our branches and etc. have to mandatorily going through that certification, and it starts right from the top to down below. So everybody has to participate. So as a part of the program, we define a yearly outcome calendar. So everything is defined at the beginning, like the target setting. Everything is defined at the beginning of the year. What will be the outcome? What are the targets? How many? So right from health checkups to how many programs you are going to run around different initiatives as campaigns. How are you going to run? Everything is defined. So we follow the calendar, and this cannot happen unless and otherwise you have a senior management sponsor, because this is built in as a part of the employee and manager calendar as well. So that's one. Second is as a part of that, we have this entire system of providing suggestions, providing incidents, working upon them, improving upon them, building policies, processes based on the employee feedback. So these are all process driven to some extent within the organization. Of course, we do have things like where we build incentives, as you are saying, for example, contests, programs which sort of talks about rewards and etc. For people who have done teams and etc. who have done better as part of the outcome. So these are all built, and when we are talking about health and wellness, it is not only about the employee health and wellness. We are talking also about the work environment per se. In terms of how healthy or hygienic the work environment is, what are you doing in terms of, for example, do you check the noise level? Do you check the sound level? Do you check the air condition, air quality in the offices, the food quality in the offices? So everything is built as a part of our health and wellness program. So that is how, as a program, that's why it has helped us in this journey, because we adopted a standard and that has to be certified by an external certification agency every year. So it goes for external certification. So that's how it is built as a part of the organization metrics and the organization BSC as well.
Fantastic. I think that's one of the benefits of working with a company like, I'm sure, Tata Capital also comes with these mandates that are necessary for all the groups companies to work with. So I think that's great. And you also spoke about the importance of defining goals, and not just that, also the work environment that I think is very central to building a culture of wellness throughout the organization. So that's great. Neha, I'm coming to you with what are some challenges that you're encountering when you reflect on your own organization, and how you sort of designing some ways to overcome them?
Thanks. So, I think one of the biggest challenge which we see for any health and wellness initiative, obviously, is the adoption. How many people are really going for it? That was one big challenge that we see. And how do you make them visible? How do you make the results visible to them? Because one leads to the other. When there's adoption, there are results, and when you show them the results, when you show the employees the results, is when you get more adoption. So that's one big challenge that we've always had. And I think that's where I would again go back to what Mayuk was saying. The senior leadership sponsorship is very, very important, because that's when that one, obviously, again, inspiration and mandate part of it that he spoke about. Now, as an organization, CGI has a very strong focus on health and wellness, because we have an EVP who's driving the whole health and wellness mandate itself. So there's a team called Oxygen that really very strongly drives the health and wellness agenda. And CGI kind of has it in its philosophy that that they actually link health and wellness directly to their business strategy. So that's again one of the things that we really want to do, because anything that you really measure and monitor is what gives you really results, that we very strongly believe in. So we actually include a health and wellness agenda as a part of our annual business planning process. What are we really going to do for health and wellness for our members, so for our employees? So that becomes very important. And I think the I think one of the things, the other thing is implement this at each level. So one is at an individual level, to make it more impactful. Maybe going on to the next question that you are asking, implement this at each level. One, make it at an individual level, make it at an organization level, and at some point integrate the two. Make sure that the two kind of marry into each other to create a holistic plan. So at an individual level, we first thing, very important, again, understand what your employees need, because you could be offering a lot of things, but is that what they really need? So one of the things that we do is, before we arrive at any kind of a health and wellness agenda, we try and understand, do a dipstick, do a survey, try and understand what our employees are really looking at. And this has changed over the last 2 years. This has gone through a change. So at one point, maybe they needed COVID care help. Then at one point, maybe a little after that, they needed a lot of mental wellness help. Right now, they are in a stage where they're all coming back to work. We are in a hybrid working mode, so they will need sessions to understand how to work in the hybrid mode. Returning parents, people who are coming back to office, schools are opening, so they need help over there. So at every stage, every 6 months, or at every stage, it kind of keeps changing. When you were working from home, you might need a time management session, because all of us know that the workforce felt very stretched, burnt out during the whole pandemic time. So I think that that becomes very important, to make it sustainable, that you understand what they need and you offer at that point what do they really need. I think, again, to make it more impactful, it is important to be top driven. To make it more impactful, it's important to be given out as an organization mandate than just one of the teams kind of using it. I would again go back to the point that I was saying. So once you start seeing the adoption, it is also very important for you to measure it. It is also very important for you to report it and make those reports visible. Okay, so so you can do those employee surveys. We have something called as an internal survey that really checks the satisfaction quotient of every employee, and include health and wellness as a part of that, include overall well-being as a part of that, publish those results, and also take action on the results that you're getting. That these are some of the things that I really think are very important when you are thinking of any health and wellness initiative to be implemented.
Great, great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Neha. I think you've covered a number of points that are very important to the context and intervention, and also on driving adoption and results. So, thank you for that. All right, so I'm going to move to the last question before we go on to our audience questions. And I'd request our audience, if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. We will take them up during this session. So, what is the one best practice that you would like for HR leaders to adopt from a long-term perspective, right? So this is, let me start with Manoj, and then we go to Neha and Mayuk. What is the one best practice you'd recommend HR leaders to adopt from a long-term perspective?
I think in some of it we may have covered during the course of today's conversation, and it has multiple pieces of it. But I think one important practice, and that's something which keeps coming back, is to have a consistent plan, which at the organizational level, which can be thought through. So we are talking about long-term success of health and benefits. That means that the plan also needs to be thought through from a long-term perspective. It is not like Neha mentioned, and I completely sort of echo her thoughts. And that, if you were to ask me, I would probably say that is one best HR practice is about having understanding the voice of the employees in terms of what works for them, what is the kind of services which work for them. While you have a thorough strategy in place, health and wellness is such that every year, you want to sort of make incremental progress in terms of how, you measure the impact and further, do meaningful addition to the overall program design, so that from a long term, which is why I mentioned earlier in the conversation, it is important to have an wide strategy and purpose in terms of what you want to get done from your health and well-being strategy. So my, best practice would be to have a consistent plan, build incremental plans over the course of multi-year strategy, which will help to drive your purpose. So that would be my one piece of information which I want to give.
Great, Neha.
Yeah. So I think I would just talk about two things maybe. Make it a mandate, senior management sponsorship, very very important, because that's what will allow you to drive this in a sustainable manner. And I think second thing I would say is, if you want to make it sustainable, if you want more adoption, link it to benefits. I remember Mayuk talking about doing the health checks and declaring those health checks and getting maybe some benefits in the insurance premiums that you pay. If you kind of link it to the benefits, it tends to work more. People adopt more. So that is very important. Obviously, again, I also had a point of talking about what Manoj said. Build it into your strategy. Very very important, because what you measure is what you do. So, build it into your strategy with measurable results. These are the three things that I would really say.
Great. Mayuk, anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, by and large, I think Neha and Manoj have covered it. I think only thing is I want to add is uh, whatever program one runs in terms of health and wellness, I think the sharp focus is should be on the ROI, establishing the return on that, because at the end of the day, we are all economic organizations, and organization would like to know why are we doing it. It's not a charitable process. It is for the good of the organization, but it has to give benefit to the organization. And only when we explain and establish the clear benefits, it will become sustainable for the organization. As Neha said, linking it to the strategy, how does it benefit the organization? It's like any of these training programs that we run. I mean, one is, of course, running a vanilla training program. But if you can establish why we are running the training program and how is the effectiveness of this training program leading on to better benefits for the organization, is when we get a sustainable buy-in for that. So that is, to my mind, is going to be crucial as we move ahead in this journey.
Absolutely. So answer your why. All right. So let's take some audience questions. I think there's one question on please share some of the best practices from industry on wellness and health. I think the entire conversation is some best practices. So I think that's a bit open ended. So I'm going to go to the other one. How to make a policy on wellness and health agenda for employees? What is the yardstick to arrive at the agenda of the same? All right. So can I paraphrase this? I want to ask maybe when you create a health policy or a new health and wellness policy, what are some ways you're maybe making a policy that's effective, or how are you thinking about driving an effective policy? What are maybe two, three things that you think about as an HR leader? Mayuk, do you want to go first?
Yeah, in the sense that when we first of all, it has to start with the need. Why do you, why are that why question should be very clearly established. Once you know why you need it, then you go about doing the other pieces of the. So obviously you'll see if the industry is doing something or some other organizations are doing some of the interventions around it. If not, then you design your own solution around it. Obviously, once you develop your own solution, then you'll socialize it within the starting right from the top management, go down and discuss this in small groups to get a feedback on these are the policies that I've developed. What is your feedback? So once you have done those small group formation, you basically refine it and then start rolling it out and then start monitoring it for the benefits and then take into the annual cycle of review and improvement and etc. So that's typically how any policy, and this is not true for only for a wellness policy, for any policy within HR, that is how generally it is done.
Great,
So
fantastic.
just add to what Mayuk said, one, obviously establishing the need for it is very important. Why do you need that? So basically, why, what, when, all those, the regular questions need to be answered for any new policy to be done. And when you're really looking at a yardstick, I mean, health and wellness can be very difficult to measure. So maybe the regular employee matrices like absenteeism, the health of the organization, how many sick leaves are being consumed, what is the frequency of those contingency or urgent unplanned leaves within your organization. What's the leave balance that people have? I think that's also a very big indicator of how the health of the organization is. So I think those are some of the things that you can measure to see how effective your plan is and how's the health of the organization. I think those are some of the things.
I can give an example. For example, sorry, I just want to give an example. Is that one of the matrices that we measure is LTI, which is the lost time due to injuries, and LTI and LTI-FR, which is basically the lost time frequency rates. So we measure both the number of incidents and what is the frequency at which that is happening. And in ours is basically financial services. So financial services has two sorts of environment. One is we work in the office, or there are people out in the field who travel by two-wheelers and four-wheelers to reach the customers. So we track both the events. And if we see that there is a threshold band that we have defined for ourselves. And if it goes beyond that, so what sort of interventions? For example, if you see the number of accidents rates are going up in the field, so immediately we ramp up the number of defensive driving courses, the way of using helmets and other things like. So there are campaigns, we run programs, we run contests, just to make that awareness, because it's a cultural thing. you need to build up that behavioral thing within the employees so that that doesn't get repeated. So these are all, interventions that you do based on the outcome that you measure for yourself.
Oh, you're in a call.
Absolutely. Manoj, you wanted to add something to this?
Yeah, well, I think most of it has been covered in today's discussions. One additional point which I think should be thought through, and like in the beginning of the conversation, we spoke about the fact that how health and wellness is now becoming part of the overall organization strategy and culture and so on and so forth. One can also look at saying whether this helps in terms of attracting talent and retention of talent as well, because people look for organizations where health and wellness is key part of their overall benefits which is being offered to them, over and above all the pieces which Mayuk and Neha mentioned. So I didn't want to repeat that. I think this is an additional piece one should look at, because attraction of talent and retention of talent is also sort of the outcome of that is about happiness quotient of your employees, that how happy are they being in the organization, and one among many other benefits is health and wellness as well.
Great, great, fantastic. So I want to ask a question on how often do you review? I think Neha, you had mentioned that how you're responding to context, right? Whether it was first about COVID, then it was about maybe burnout, whether it was about now return to work. What is maybe your system, or how often are you looking at some of your wellness priorities? Like, is it 3 months or is it just need based? What is your thought process on that?
So there are two things that we really look at. One, obviously, is in a more measured, structured manner, which we do in our quarterly reviews of strategy, plan, and all of that. So we look at the general health, we look at what do we really need to do. So that's obviously on a quarterly basis. As we review the other business matrices, we go ahead and review these as well. But the other thing, obviously, is the need basis as well. So things change, environments change, and when we feel a need, as HRBPs, we are very connected to the employees. We keep talking to them and understanding what are the challenges that they would possibly be looking at in a changing scenario, or maybe in a fixed scenario as well. And on a need basis, also there are a few ad hoc implementations that we really do. So we work very closely with the employees to see what we can really offer it. So health and wellness being very closely linked to the human resources part that you really work with, it's very difficult to put them in a strategy saying every 3 months only I'm going to review it, because that's not how needs would work. So we have both the approaches that we really take.
Great, fantastic. I think all of us, in some way or form, have spoken about the importance of leadership, right? Right from driving the programs to mandating it to having a top-down focus. Apart from sort of maybe leadership conversations, what else are you doing with leaders to ensure wellness goals are met? Are you also sort of prodding them to participate in some of these initiatives or drive some of these initiatives? Could you also talk about the different ways of using leadership in your wellness programs? Mayuk, do you want to start?
So, right from the leaders communicating about the importance of health and safety, and it is important for us because we club health and safety together. So the leaders, starting the leaders coming right from the MD to the down below and etc., everybody talking about health and safety as a part of. In fact, all our major meetings start with pledges, safety pledges, health pledges, to down below, populating it to in the town halls, and taking health and safety is built in as a part of employee help desk as well. So, which is basically reviewed, what is the aging of issues. So all these are reviewed at very frequency in different, like for example, customer queries and things like that. These will also get reviewed. So there is a large focus that the leadership provides in terms of the health and safety organization, and also in terms of there are we have branches, for example, 300 branches all across the country, and there are leadership which keeps on traveling to these locations. They meet people, people raise issues, those issues come back as a feedback that is put into the regular circle of the improvement and observation cycle. So all that creates an environment where there is a large focus on health and safety. Also, the other piece is that all our branches are sufficiently empowered. So if there is a health and safety issue in the branch in charge has a full authority to act even before checking up with anybody higher up. So he has a full control and full authority to take an action if it impacts the health and safety of an employee in his branch. He doesn't need to check with anybody else for acting. So all these are issues, cultural issues, empowerment issues that we built up in the system, which sort of enables people to work on that framework.
Great. Manoj or Neha, you want to add something to this?
So I'll just go ahead and add a few points that what we really do. Obviously, the leadership involvement is very is the leadership is very involved in all the health and wellness initiatives that we do. I think we introduced something called as lean in circles. For I mean, a lot of you would have heard it's a diversity initiative that we really have lean in circles, and we asked the leaders to actually become leaders for these circles and actually lead those initiatives. And we also introduced our oxygen team, our health and wellness team, introduced mental health minutes. So all these leadership meetings that we have, what we really do is we ask them to spend 1 minute at the beginning of each meeting to spend on mental health. Put a question in front of them, let them think a little bit, write down or anything. I mean, just spend a little bit of minute to spend on your mental health. I mean, how was your day today, or what is it that you would really like to do? Or just pass on a message saying take a break because you really need it. So mental health minutes have been introduced. We also make sure that leaders are involved in flagging of a lot of events and participating in it. So when we publish scorecards, we make sure that we have leader scorecards as well. So that again, kind of just creates visibility of for the events. So I think those are the ones, and they share their stories. I mean, those are few of the other things at an initiative level that we do apart from what Mayuk said.
Great. Manoj, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think pretty much Neha and Mayu covered. I think one of the pieces is, like we mentioned and covered it as well, is while leadership needs to be absolutely participative and they need to sort of this needs to sort of get driven top down. I think any of the plan communication, be it sharing stories, and so for example, if a plan or a benefits which has been implemented, if the first adoption is done by a respective leader and those stories are shared, I think that matters a lot. There are various engagement events where we worked with corporates where we pretty like the way we are doing a virtual event right now. The event gets organized where actually all the employees are on the virtual call, and the leaders sort of announce the plan and sort of open that up for Q&A so that it is flowing from there. So bunch of such initiatives in such a way that employees are also, and I think Mayuk also spoke about the inspiration part of it, and I'll only touch upon that particular piece. I think that gets derived from there, and helps the employees to kind of sort of adopt that as well. So I think those are my last comments here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Manoj, Mayuk, Neha, for sharing these great insights. And thanks to our audience. With that, it's a close for this session, but do look for more such exciting discussions. Once again, a special thank you to our partner MediBuddy and our panelists here today for sharing their invaluable time, knowledge, and information with us today. So look for more such exciting sessions, and also follow the hashtag Wellness First with MediBuddy for more such exciting curated resources. You will find a link to the comment section. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.